Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we are live at the World Trade Center in Seattle talking about Budtenders. They're the critical link between bankruptcy and billions. Today, we're here with some fascinating guests. And so we're going to jump right into our panelists here. First, we have Alec Langston. He's a Budtender at Dockside Cannabis. Alec has been a cannabis enthusiast for several years and has been budtending for about 3 years now. His passion is educating people about cannabis and budtending, which has been a great outlet for that, being a budtender. His goal is to help as many people and experience this wonderful plant as possible. His favorite part of the cannabis industry is changing that perception of cannabis skeptics and watching customers benefit from the guidance that's incredibly rewarding. And he's looking forward to developing within this industry and meeting new people along the way. We also have Brian Yeager, CEO of LemonHaze.com. LemonHaze is a cannabis tech platform with a history of presenting industry data and more recently hosting events with a focus on budtenders, which is providing innovative and relevant education, networking opportunities, and business exchanges along with nationally recognized entertainers who have a prominent voice in the normalization and growth of recreational cannabis industry. Ashley is a budtender at Green Lady Pot Shop in Olympia. She's a budtender in Olympia with a medical marijuana certificate. Rebecca Berry is a senior account manager at Work. Work is an all-in-one workforce management solution for highly regulated markets, including the cannabis industry. They've created an intuitive application to manage payroll, HR, timekeeping, and tax compliance with everything you need to streamline operations, reduce labor costs, and minimize regulatory risk. And also, remotely is Claire Kaufman, Director of Client Services at Brightfield Group. Claire's nationally known CBD and cannabis business and marketing strategist. She currently works as the Director of Client Services at the Brightfield Group, an industry-leading CBD and cannabis market research firm. Claire has worked in the CBD and cannabis space for the past 7 years. She's worked in-house for vertically integrated cannabis companies and formerly as a Northwest Regional Director for BDS Analytics. Claire has also recently served on the OLCC, Recreational Marijuana Business Council in Oregon. Her take on the future trends of the cannabis industry and the question facing marketers and entrepreneurs are sought out by national and international media, cannabis industry leaders, and key players in the traditional marketing world. I'd like to thank everybody for being on board and being on the Talking Hedge podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And about the World Trade Center, the World Trade Center Tacoma grows trade and investment by providing direct access to the largest business network in the world with 300 offices in 99 countries. The World Trade Center in Tacoma is a lone trade service center for the Pacific Northwest. They have seminars and award ceremonies, conferences that can generate contacts and contracts. Trade research can clarify opportunities, and their matchmaking can turn those opportunities into trade. One of the things that I like about the World Trade Center is it gives me peace of mind knowing that I can use international guarantees or bank guarantees as a member. And also the e-commerce export store, they've partnered with Alibaba, which is translated into 18 languages and provides an opportunity to sell your product online internationally to hard-to-reach places like Asia. I want to follow up on an article that was written at brightfieldgroup.com about the importance of budtenders. I think the article was titled Insights for Dispensaries and Importance of Budtenders. And I'll just quote some of that.
Thank you for citing that, yes.
Yeah. It says that some outside the industry might smirk at the notion of budtending as an illegitimate profession, but those in the know understand that they're a key component of making their cannabis succeed. In reality, the vast majority of patients and consumers take budtender recommendations very seriously. 22% of respondents buy from dispensaries or recreational shops that report always following the budtender's recommendation, whereas another 69% seriously consider budtender recommendations, although they weigh other factors as well. And interesting, those who spend more per week on cannabis and consume more frequently have a higher opinion of the knowledge of their local budtenders and follow their recommendations more often. And this is significant because in many markets, as much as 3/4 of sales come from those users. And so, Claire, how do you quantify how important budtenders are to the cannabis brands?
Well, that's a really good question, and one that we're actually trying to address right now. I wish I could be more specific. But yes, so in terms of how to quantify the importance of budtenders to brands, we use this study in particular. But what we're really trying to do is to help understand how to get budtenders to understand the value of different brands, if that makes sense. So sometimes you will see that budtenders have such a huge influence on sales. I have seen customers, so at Groundworks, where I was working in Oregon, we ran Sarah and Electric Lettuce, and combined we had about 15 different retail outlets. And people are so loyal to their Budtenders that they will leave one dispensary and go to another to follow a Budtender that they have trust in. Because as you know, especially in the flower world, and even some in the concentrates world, there's no set SKUs. So oftentimes you go in, the product's different. And even though your medical condition is the same, what you need is different. So if you don't have a Budtender to connect the dots for you, you really are just sort of throwing things against the wall. In terms of quantifying, what we do with our different brand clients is we usually find a subset of dispensaries are looking to get into, and we'll actually sometimes do focus groups and have them try the product before it even goes to market to get their feedback on it, and if they would be willing to recommend it, and if they wouldn't, what do they need from the product in order to feel confident in that recommendation. And that kind of focus group and that kind of insight is so important to the brands that we work with.
Rebecca, I know that at work with HR, you see a lot of people come in and maybe they have a different idea of what the cannabis industry is going to be. Some people make it, some don't. What are you seeing with some of the qualities of people that do make it? And how does work sort of quantify how important it is for Budtenders and the brands that they represent and the brands that they represent?
Yeah, I think too, to a lot of our clients, it's like having that education piece and, understanding the product is key. I think we see a lot of people who see this fun industry to come into, and again, my big piece is always compliance because that's what we focus on, and not understanding the compliance piece of it and how critical these Budtenders are to the clientele and ensuring that the right strands are chosen and the right product is pushed to the customer. We do see a lot of churn. As you can imagine, we have people who do hop from different concept to different concept, but they also, tend to follow a brand that they like or a leadership that they like that may go to another brand. So it's really a big piece of keeping that preventative turnover is the education up front, the training up front, knowing who you're hiring ahead of time. And, I think we spoke to this earlier too, having a Budtender who really has done their own education and has their knowledge to come in to stick by the brand and the product. But the churn is definitely a huge piece of what we see in this industry, and it's about ensuring that your employees are invested in and that they feel needed, that they're incentivized, and that's a huge piece of preventing that turnover, is keeping good people.
For quantifying them, that would be challenging. I think some of the guidance and advice that they provide to consumers as they're coming into these stores. We put a price tag on it, right, with their hourly rates, and in some stores, depending on the states, they can take, they can accept tips. However, that knowledge and background of those Budtenders who take it upon themselves to educate themselves and spend time learning about the plant and the different effects that it might have on one individual or another, depending on what they're looking for. It's really challenging to put necessarily a price tag on that, I think, or quantify that. Because it really is. It's difficult to measure because they are such valuable assets. Now, that being said, you can look at, okay, here's the amount of sales that one Budtender is bringing in versus another Budtender. Kind of look at, what they're, how many of them have repeat customers, and start to offer kind of performance management or performance-based incentives to some of those Budtenders for what they're able to bring in terms of customers and repeat customers. So difficult to quantify, but if you really like to dive deep into data, and if we had tools in the cannabis industry that allowed us to dive deep into data and allowed us to capture that kind of information, then perhaps we would be able to measure it a little bit easier. But it's kind of like I don't want to relate it to a cruise ship, but everybody at the dispensary, everyone has to work together and everyone impacts one another. So if your inventory person isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I come in and I'm used to asking for one thing and that's not in stock because the inventory person didn't do it, well then that impacts the Budtender's ability to sell me that product. And even though I'm a repeat customer and I'm always coming in for that exact same product. So everybody has to work together as one cohesive unit to make sure everyone is successful at the store.
These business owners do realize that the Budtenders are absolutely key to the customer experience and the ultimate success, failure, and profitability of these firms. There seems to be an increasing number of them that, there's the ones that are relatively new that kind of took on people within their immediate networks and are finding that a lot of the friends and family type recruiting is starting to run up against its limits and are seeking out people who are highly experienced in other types of high-end retail that can create a very similar experience in their stores. A lot of folks positioning their retail experience at that high end and wanting to reflect that sort of experience. So certainly on the qualitative side, we see that businesses are increasingly aware of the value of that. And then also people trying to match the personality of their neighborhood. We recently worked with a dispensary in Capitol Hill that wanted to make sure that their management and who would also be responsible for hiring the various other budtenders would be very reflective of the vibe of the neighborhood, so all these things factor in.
Yeah, well, and those budtenders, I mean, really what they're doing is relationship building, and with every customer that comes in, that could be a potential repeat customer, and so they're building the really great budtenders build relationships with every single customer that's coming through the door. So the next time they walk in, they're like, "Oh, and how is your dog doing today?" And how was that vacation that you were going to go on? Oh, weren't you taking product to go into the mountains hiking? Or are you doing that again? So they meet these individuals as they come in to purchase. They internalize that, and that's how they get those repeat customers. And they're really great budtenders. I've been to a few stores where it seems like they remember everything about me, and those are the stores that I'm going to keep, and those budtenders that I'm going to keep going back to, because they're just really great at building those relationships and getting people in.
And with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. I want to thank all my guests for being here with the Budtender panel. That's Alec Langston, who's a Budtender at Dockside Cannabis. Brian Yeager right here, CEO of lemonhaze.com. We have Ashley Herkett, Budtender at Green Lady Pot Shop in Olympia. On the line with us is Rebecca Berry, Senior Account Manager at Work. And also on the line with us is Claire Kaufman, Director of Client Services at Brightfield Group.
Previously recorded is Tom Geiger, Communications Director of a union in Seattle, UFCW 21. Also, Kara Bradford and David Moret, co-founders at Viridian Staffing. And Zara Cole and Tyler Nestorenko of Budtenders Ball.
So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.